Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, the Minnesota Timberwolves destroyed the Zhangguo Lions in their preseason game on Monday night. The Wolves won by 60 behind a young man's game. Rob Dillingham, Joan Beringer, as all the top players sat, they dominated. We'll talk about what the key takeaways are and what those guys can carry into the Wolves regular season next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hopefully you had a fun time enjoying the Timberwolves' 60-point blowout win over the Zhangguo Lions, the Chinese team, on Monday night at Target Center. We'll talk all about that game today. This is really a post-game podcast. We're just warming up with post-game pods as we're only about a week away from the start of the regular season. A couple preseason games to go. This one was a young man's game. There were all starters. 8 of the top 10 sat for Minnesota, but that means that we got a long look at some of the guys fighting for roster spots, for rotation spots, and for, we'll call it status in the eyes of Chris Finch and the coaching staff as we head into the season to try and prove that they're worthy of rotation minutes. And there were some standouts. There were a couple guys that didn't play as well, but overall, a really dominant performance for the Wolves as the 60-point final margin would indicate. So we're going to get into a lot of Beringer, a lot of Dillingham on today's show. And, what I think they did that really kind of elevates them, and what stands out the most about each of their individual performances, among other things from this game. So we'll do all that on the show today. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. All right, so some quick context for this game. The Zhangguo Lions have several former and even recent NBA players. Frank Kaminsky, who I saw play in a G League game for the Raptors G League team last year, started at center for the Lions. Tim Frazier, former Penn State guy, former brief NBA player, Pelicans, among other teams, I think, started for them, as did Victor Oladipo. And then off the bench, Justin Holiday and Deontay Burton. So you got 5 recent NBA, I don't want to call them washouts, sounds harsh. I don't think it's fair to call Oladipo or even Holiday and Burton washouts. But all those guys trying to prove that they can get back to the NBA. The Chinese Basketball League over the last several years has become really, I think you go back, 15 plus years to when Steph Marbury kind of made it a thing and he dominated over there. And now you're seeing a lot of guys go over there and play and come back and get back to the NBA. We've seen several players do that recently. So there is some legit professional kind of fringe NBA talent in this league and on this team. And so, it obviously they just got crushed by the Clippers shortly before they got crushed by the Wolves. So it's not an NBA team, but still, at least guys that it was kind of fun seeing some of those names in the on the Chinese team. So the Wolves sat all their starters. They also sat their first 2 off the bench, Reid and Donte DiVincenzo, plus Jalen Clark is still out after the, I'm sure he would have played, but he had that collision, and I think neck sprain is what the Wolves called it, about a week ago in the preseason game. So 8 of the top 10 did not play for Minnesota. And that meant that we got to see in the starting lineup 2 guys who are definitely fighting for, I don't know that Terrence Shannon's really fighting for anything at this point other than just proving like, hey, I'm ready for this role. But like right now, TJ Shannon's probably number 8 in the rotation anyway, right? And Rob Dillingham is kind of fighting for that 9th, 10th spot with Jalen Clark sitting here right now. Like that's where we're at. Those 2 guys started. This year's first-round draft pick, Joan Beringer, got to start. Bones Highland, veteran, kind of the last man off the bench who's trying to prove that, hey, it makes sense that you stuck with me, gave me a contract. I think it's unlikely he's seen rotation minutes. Remember how dominant he was in the first preseason game? There was some chatter of like, could he take Dillingham's role? He didn't look as good as Dillingham in this game. He played fine. We'll talk about that. And then Leonard Miller got his first preseason action, which, actually probably could have been the headline from this one. And we'll talk about Lenny. here in a minute, but I just don't think he's realistically fighting for rotation minutes. He's just kind of fighting for like, hey, I can be part of this thing moving forward. I'm a quality depth piece. And or could the Wolves trade him for something? Honestly, like that's partly what's being fought for here with Leonard Miller. And he had a double-double, played well. It was his first preseason action after he'd had the lacerated finger about a week and a half ago. They said he'd miss a week. So first time he got to play, and he got to play 23 minutes in this one. And then the full complement of bench guys. And we got to see 7 different guys off the bench. They played 12 guys. Everyone played double-digit minutes. So there's a lot to get to in this one. But we have to start with Rob Dillingham and Joan Beringer. And let's go Dilly first. So I've been as harsh on Rob Dillingham as anybody because I just think there's just so much volatility in what he provides. And that's a lot of what I want to focus on today. But first, let's start with how good he was in this game. 27 points on 14 shots. It really doesn't get more efficient than that. I mean, that's nearly 2 points per shot attempt. That's crazy. A perfect 4 of 4 from outside the arc, 3 of 4 at the free throw line, 9 assists, only 1 turnover for Rob Dillingham. And I can only think of 1, maybe 2 semi-ill-advised shots. But for Rob Dillingham, if he squeezes the trigger 14 times, and those are only twice where you scratch your head and go, maybe he shouldn't have shot that. That's a really good shot selection. Like, that's good for anybody. I mean, extrapolate that out. If Ant shoots 28 times and there's only 4 times out of 28 that you're like, man, maybe he shouldn't have shot that. That's pretty good shot selection. Like, rarely are you going to go 100% on, hey, that was a good choice to shoot that shot. And that's one of Rob Dillingham, if not his biggest problem, if not his biggest problem, period. Like, you look back at last year, you look back at what we've seen so far, Summer League preseason this season, shot selection would be number 1. And overall decision-making, right? To pass, to shoot. Should I force this pass or am I going to commit a turnover? Like, those decisions were nearly impeccable for Rob Dillingham in this game. And that's really encouraging. That's been the biggest concern. And he was nearly perfect in that regard. The shot looked great. When to push, when not to push. There was a possession, maybe 2-3 possessions into the game where he pushed in transition and threw a nice lob to Beringer. It was nearly like it was actually kind of a microcosm, or maybe a better way to say it would be a perfect representation of this game was the feel of Beringer, the tenacity of both of those guys to run the floor, the decision and the precision on the pass. Man, I feel like I'm on ESPN trying to like rhyme a couple of words. I didn't do that intentionally. The decision and then also the precision of the pass from Dillingham to Beringer showed the upside of both of those guys. And frankly, it also showed the floor of Joan Beringer, which is the other thing I really wanted to key in on. Joan Beringer is an NBA rotation player right now. I'm willing to say that. I felt like we were trending that way during Summer League because of just I don't know how else to say it other than I think he has shocking feel and a shockingly high basketball IQ, if you will, for a guy who's 20 and has been playing basketball for less than 5 years. I mean, Beringer, like it's just unbelievable to me how good his feel is for his age and lack of experience. He knows almost exactly where to be and when, especially, well, actually really on both ends of the floor. But the example I just gave in transition, there were a couple dunker spot opportunities that he got because he found the soft spot, right? Like he kind of, that's so much of that role. If you're going to play the 5 and not be involved in the initial action is knowing where to be on the floor and when, the timing and the spacing to not clog the paint, to not, to not fade toward the hoop too soon, or I should say sink toward the hoop too soon and clog the paint, to not fade too far into the corner where you're not a threat. And in Berenger's case, he's not a jump shooter. So you have to have the right feel to be in the right place. And then obviously the athleticism and the hands to finish. And he's, for the most part, shown us that to this point through Summer League, through preseason to this point. I want to talk about his, a little bit about his feel defensively as well. And the impact he's had on that end of the floor. And then just kind of like put a bow on the Dillingham Beringer piece of this before we move to the next guy. Cause we got to talk Leonard Miller. We got to talk Johnny Juzang. There's really a lot of positives that came out of this thing. So we'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Lockdown Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Not only is it the season here, we are through week 6 now, believe it or not, after a pair of Monday night games last night. We can look ahead here and see what's upcoming this week. on the FanDuel slate. But right now, new customers can bet just $5. You'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Right now, Thursday night football this week, Steelers at Bengals. The Steelers still playing well, had some good fortune, had a relatively easy schedule, and they get more good fortune as they get to play the Bengals on the road. Of course, no Joe Burrow. The Bengals got mostly shut down against the Packers with Joe Flacco at the controls on Sunday, although there was a crazy Jamar Chase catch that made things a little bit interesting. Steelers are favored by 5.5 on the road at the Bengals. I don't know that I like that spread. I actually kind of might go Bengals plus 5.5, given the fight that they showed, some professionalism at the quarterback spot, short week for Aaron Rodgers and company with the Steelers. I might go Bengals plus 5.5 on Thursday night. Either way, the other thing you could do is you could live bet the game. You could do a same game parlay. Whether you're a casual fan or you just love diving into the stats, FanDuel has a ton of ways to make your game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people cannot name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. There's a ton of great ways you could do this. You can increase your savings rate. You can also easily review finances with your partner, or maybe you're just your financial advisor, to give you a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term and more. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. All right. Let's dig in. Actually, let's put a bow on the Beringer Dillingham conversation. So we talk about Berenger's offense, and the point I started to make there is the overall floor of what Joan Beringer can give you right now. And like at best, he's 10th on the depth chart. Like if you're just taking an overall snapshot of like the rotation, he's probably 11th, honestly, just because you look at how many. There's just more minutes to go around on the wing and in the front court. There's frankly more positions. There's 3 positions to fill there versus 2, given the way the Wolves kind of see those as almost interchangeable. And in the front court, you've got stars: Rudy Gobert, Julius, Randle, Reid. Those guys are all stars. You like Locked On NBA top 100 players. Those 3 guys are all in the top 100, and you got a little bit more wiggle room in the backcourt because you've got Ant, you've got Jaden, and Dante didn't make the top 100. This is obviously a rudimentary way to look at this. Kind of a crude way to look at this. Mike Conley's not in the top 100. So you're talking your 4 guys to fill 3 roles there, or 5 if you want to include TJ Shannon to fill 3 roles, and only 2 of them are in the top 100. Whereas your top 3 guys to fill your 4 and your 5 spots are top 100 players. So there's just more minutes to go around in the front court, right? Or excuse me, in the back court right now and on the wing than there are in the front court. However, Beringer, a different player than say like a Luka Garza, but I think his floor is every bit as high for this season. Like I'm not saying his career floor, like this season, you insert him into a real live NBA game right now. His floor is higher than like a Luka Garza. I believe that now. And I was a little bit worried about this position when they allowed Garza to leave. And this is obviously, it's a champagne problem situation, talking about the backup big that's only going to play like legit rotation minutes in 15 games this season. That's the role that Beringer is in. And I was worried that they weren't going to be able to trust him to a level that like, hey, second night of a back-to-back in March and Rudy's down because of a back or whatever, like we need a big, and Garza could give you 20 competitive minutes more often than not. It depends on who your competition is. It depends on the matchup. Beringer is nearly matchup proof. It might actually be the opposite of Luka Garza. Like you really only wanted to play Garza against teams that played back to the basket because you could play a slower pace. He could also pull him out on the perimeter and shoot. Beringer, you don't want to play against the back-to-the-basket guys as much because they can bully him in the post. At the same time, he's a shot blocker. He can run the floor. He's not a stretch big, right? He's not shooting threes. But the skill set, I think, is more transferable, and the floor is higher than Luka Garza's. And I think you could put him out there against almost anybody, and he's going to give you a competitive 10 minutes a game or whatever they need him for this year. Because of his activity level, his feel on both ends of the floor, the shot blocking ability, He blocked a shot in the third quarter of this game where I think he might have hit it center of the rim. It was close. And just a volleyball spike. 10 points, 10 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds in 22 minutes. I do think the one area where there needs to be a little bit of work and where Garza may have had him beat a little bit, and I'm only comparing him because, again, similar type role, like outside looking in the rotation, but next big up. He's number 4 on the big depth chart. There's nobody else besides Zakarsky, Enrique Freeman, both on 2-way contracts, right? So, like, it's Beringer is next man up if there's a reason to need a big in the season. Defensive rebounding is the one area that there needs to be some improvement. He shows flashes. Obviously, the athleticism is crazy. The length, the overall tenacity on the glass is huge. He's really good at all those things. The polish on the defensive glass, we've seen him push around a little bit. Obviously, he's not the biggest guy in terms of his strength, his build, his frame. But also, like, I think the defensive rebounding instincts could use some honing. Obviously, boxing out, like some of those things he needs to improve on. But because of his activity level, size, athleticism, and I think the feel on offense, frankly, like it's strange. It's almost like his feel on the offensive glass is ahead of his feel on the defensive glass. I don't really know why that is, and it probably is going to be a little bit opponent dependent on the type of success he has on both ends of the floor on the glass. But he's a really good offensive rebounder right now. Defensive, and I think it is maybe because offensive rebound is more about effort and athleticism. Defensive rebound is more about technique. That's probably the difference. But there's a lot of upside there. And again, the floor is very high on his actual night-to-night production right now in limited minutes because of all the reasons I've already cited. And that's what encouraged me the most in this game. By the way, the top 3, for what it's worth, the top 3 plus minuses in this game, Beringer was a plus 36. TJ Shannon, who we'll talk about in a second, was a plus 33. And Rob Dillingham was a plus 32. All 3 of those guys were great. TJ Shannon didn't jump off the page in this one. In a game, like, he could have been like, I'm going to go for 30. He had 15 points on 8 shots, 4 of 6 outside the arc, 4 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, but he initiated more offense. It was something that Matt Lloyd actually pointed out, the Timberwolves GM, when he was on the call with Alan Horton for I think the entirety of the second quarter. There were a couple of possessions where he was like, hey, look at Shannon's initiating here. Like, he called it out. We've been talking about this on the show since June. TJ Shannon's going to be asked to do this more often. And he showed it in Summer League. He had the 1-7-9 assist game, whatever it was. He showed it a little bit in preseason. If he's in the Nickeil role, he's a de facto, quote unquote, backup point guard in terms of how they'd like to use him. And if he proves he could do it, if he can initiate pick and rolls, if he can push the pace himself as the primary ball handler, that opens up a much larger role for him. And it makes everything the Wolves did this offseason look extremely smart without trying to be like, all right, we got to sign a backup point guard, which I've been clamoring for because I feel a lot safer doing that if I'm the Wolves. But they made it work with Nickeil to the tune of back-to-back conference finals, and they're trying to do it now with TJ Shannon. And obviously you have Rob Dillingham, who's more of a point guard, even if he's a shoot-first point guard, more of a true point guard than a TJ Shannon. But TJ initiated more in this game, and I thought he called his number the appropriate amount of time. The catch-and-shoot stuff was great, as it usually is with him. So just a really good, I would call it a professional performance from TJ Shannon, is how I would frame it. He didn't try and do too much. He played more of that glue role that he's going to be asked to do during the regular season for the Wolves in actual competition as like the 8th guy in the rotation. The last one that I want to like really highlight here is Johnny Juzang. Juzang is really making a case for like, hey, I know that I was just a guy who was asked to jack shots on a bad team last year, actually the last couple of years, and the offensive numbers were good. I didn't try in defense, but hey, look, I can buckle down and be a part of a winning team. And if you don't even really need to read between the lines, but the Chris Finch interview he did with Britt Robson a couple of weeks ago at MinPost, again, it was like a 4 or 5 part interview. I encourage you to read it. Britt does a great job. Really fun sit down, back and forth Q&A with Finch. And he was asked about Johnny Juzang, and he talked about how basically he profiles as somebody who should be a really good 2-way wing, basically a 3-and-D wing. The body type, the athleticism, the size really is the biggest thing. He's just a big guy when you watch them play. He should be able to guard, and he hasn't really at the NBA level. And Finch doesn't say this, but this is me talking. I don't think he was asked to or held to account to guard on some of these bad teams. It was more of like, hey, this guy's going to shoot threes. We're going to let him do his thing. And the Wolves are going to make him defend if he's going to be on this team. And I thought he competed on the defensive end in this game. And I thought he locked in, and I thought he was really, really good defending on the perimeter. And if he can do that, like, he's not challenging TJ Shannon for minutes, but you feel good about him being essentially TJ Shannon's backup. right? Like if he's down, if he gets hurt, if he's in foul trouble, whatever, and you need somebody to come in and defend and handle a little bit, knock down threes on offense, Johnny Juzang can do that. I'm starting to become pretty confident in that, which seems weird after just watching preseason, but like it seems like he's committed on the defensive end and he's got enough of that versatile skill set offensively, and he's a good enough shooter. He's still on it. Like he's not on as much of a heater as he was a couple of games ago, but he's still went 3 for 6 outside the arc in this game. 17 points and 11 shots, 5 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals. He did have 2 turnovers, but the best plus minus off the bench. Actually, 4th best on the team in this game. And honestly, like I don't use plus minus to evaluate stuff. So I had already written all my notes, and now I'm looking at the box score, and I'm realizing the 4 guys I wanted to talk about did have the best plus minuses. I promise I didn't know that beforehand, because I think it could be misleading for sure. But Juzang, he's continuing to make the case. Like, remember, from what we know, his deal is partially guaranteed, and now he's made the case like, hey, I should be on this team. I should be your 12th guy or whatever. And honestly, I think what he brings is valuable on the wing as a versatile big wing forward type guy. That I'm encouraged by Juzang, and I came into this thinking he shouldn't be on the team necessarily because I thought the defensive effort wasn't there in the past for him and spotty offense. But this kind of looks like a rotation player at this stage. All right, we'll talk about key takeaways from the rest of the players. I'm not going to do like a full studs and duds today, but I want to talk about Miller. I want to talk about Bones, Zakarsky, some other guys off the bench that had interesting games. We'll do all that here next to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat, and the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right. Other notables from this game. We got to talk about Leonard Miller. We've gone too long without talking about Lenny. First preseason action for him after the finger laceration cost him to miss the first 3 games. And he got some nice run in this game, put up 15 and 11 in 23 minutes, 6 of 8 shooting, knocked down his only 3-point attempt, which was, I think, very early in this game. Got to the line once for a pair of shots, 1 block, 1 assist, only 1 turnover. This was, I was impressed with his work on the glass. If he's going to ever be a rotation guy at the NBA level, he's going to have to rebound a little bit. I don't think he's dynamic enough / consistent enough to be like a true point forward, which is kind of his skill set coming out of the G League Ignite. Was like, hey, this guy could be, remember Terrence Williams from Louisville, like 12 years ago? That was kind of what he was supposed to be, is like a point forward, like a massive point guard, basically. That's kind of the idea with Leonard Miller, but I don't know that the polish or the consistency, it certainly hasn't shown up yet. And so he's got to be able to be a little bit more of a big, and the frame and the overall, like his ability to bang down low and compete down low isn't always there. I thought it was in this game. He scored on a couple of bully ball moves down low. Obviously has a size and athleticism advantage over most of the guys on this Lions team. But I thought he competed well in the paint, and that was a good thing to see. He led the team with 11 boards. Again, 15 points and 8 shots. The efficiency was outstanding across the board for Minnesota in this game. But, he's behind Beringer on the depth chart. I think he has to be at this point, and I'm sure that the lacerated finger did not help in that regard. But again, I go back to the floor conversation that I was having about Beringer and Dillingham earlier, and I talked more about Beringer than Dillingham. I just real quickly on that point, Dillingham's floor is not as high because he makes a lot of mistakes. The consistency is not there, and I think we'll talk more about him on tomorrow's show and maybe dig into that point a little bit, the difference between Beringer and Dillingham right now, in terms of their outlook for getting NBA minutes in the fall of 2025, right? But for Leonard Miller, I would put him in a similar category as Dillingham, where there's a little bit too much of the loosey-goosey. Can he do this with consistency? What's the floor of what he can provide? And he doesn't have that one skill that's consistent, like the rebounding. Like Beringer, it's defense, it's switchability, it's activity. Leonard Miller is a bit more haphazard. And could you put him out there and he could put up, 10 and 10 in 18 minutes and help you get a win? Yeah, I absolutely. But I don't know that you're going to get that 9 times out of 10 when you put him out there. Whereas Beringer, I think you're going to get the same thing 9 times out of 10. And Miller, I still really like his upside. I like him as an NBA player. I just don't think he's a rotation guy on a team that is trying to win the finals this year. I really wouldn't be surprised if a team came and offered the Wolves something for Leonard Miller at some point this season. The Wolves traded him. I don't know. It's probably not a first-round pick because it's not like he's shown that type of ability, but a good second-round pick, which is what they used to draft him. I think Minnesota would consider that because he's going to get, his contract's going to be up soon. I believe he's got an option for next year, and that's it. I don't have it in front of me, but they're going to have to make that decision. And it's not like they're going to give him an extension beyond a vet minimum type extension. And he's probably like, there's somebody out there that probably would, right? So I do think there's a real possibility that Leonard Miller gets traded at some point this season, but this was a nice performance from him. Good for Lenny to get back on the floor and play well. And I'm hopeful that he gets some opportunity over the final couple preseason games too. Bones Hyland played only 16 minutes, did not make a shot, but he played well, I thought. The shot selection, as it always is with him, is a bit spotty, but 7 assists to 2 turnovers, 6 boards in 16 minutes for a guard. Like a nice performance overall from Bones. I'm starting to come around toward him as like essentially a third point guard, like break glass in case of emergency. We need this guy to come out here and shoot a bunch. Like he'll do that and he'll make some and he'll compete as long as I put him in the same category as some of these other guys. Can they compete defensively? Like that's the question for Juzang, right? And Dillingham, I think, has competed defensively. He's just really small, but I think he tries hard for the most part on defense, which is very important. As long as Bones tries hard defensively, he's got some length. He's got obviously some IQ and know-how with his experience. If he applies himself defensively, then yeah, I feel good about him being a deep bench depth piece. Other guys, Rocco Zakarski, 16 points in 26 minutes on just 7 shots, got to the line a bunch, was 4 of 6 at the line, only 3 boards in 26 minutes. That has been kind of the thing that I've wanted to see more from him on is the rebounding, a little bit better feel and activity and frankly, using his physicality. This is a team he probably should have dominated a little bit more physically. And that's in part how he got to the line 6 times. But only 3 boards in 26 minutes. He obviously is not an NBA player yet, but I think his dexterity continues to impress me at his size, and his ability and feel in some of those situations is really good. So good for him he ended up playing a second most minutes on the team with 26. Another guy I want to call out real quick, Jules Bernard. I've really enjoyed watching him in preseason. He's got Iowa Wolves written all over him. He did commit 5 fouls in 14 minutes in this game, but he also had 11 points on 6 shots in 14 minutes. And seems to be kind of a tough-nosed 3-and-D type guy that I've enjoyed watching play, and I feel like could be a fringe NBA guy here over the next few years. And I like him as G League depth and somebody who perhaps they can keep in the system for the next couple of years. He's not probably ever going to be more than like a 9th guy, and I don't know that he's that yet, but I like him. I think he's a good glue type player, and I thought he played well. Tristan Newton continues to just kind of be Tristan Newton. I don't really know. He's always pretty nondescript. And it's interesting to me, the Wolves are apparently pretty high on him to the point where that they claimed him off waivers last year and signed him to a 2-way deal again this year. He was good, but I just feel like the decision-making is spotty and the upside is really not there either. So I don't know. Like I don't really have anything positive or negative to say about his performance. It just like a couple of times a stint for him. I'm like, wait, what's he doing? And then all of a sudden he does make a good play. And it's like, it's volatile, but the overall outcome of it is pretty flat. Like, what's he really giving you to help you win? He's not doing anything to kill you, but he is. It's just, it's up and down, right? Like it's not he's good. It's not he's bad. It's just he's there. It's just a volatile way of getting there, right? It's how I always used to describe like Luke Ridnour and JJ Barea. Man, I'm doing lots of these like 15-year ago callbacks right now. So showing my, I guess, age and the Timberwolves historian in me. I felt like Luke Ridnour and JJ Barea gave us the same thing in very different ways, right? Like Luke Ridnour was steady. Here's what you're going to get. JJ Barea was all over the place, and he would drop 25 and then he would have 7 turnovers the next night or whatever. And ultimately the output was basically the same. They were both kind of averagey point guards, and the highs and lows were there with Brea, and they just weren't there as much for Ridnour, and he was just steady. It's kind of like that, but on a much different level because we're talking about a 2-way guy at the end of the roster. Anyway. All right. Tomorrow I want to dig in a bit more on the Dillingham floor ceiling conversation and his role and some of those things. We'll do that on Wednesday's show, and then peeking ahead at the rest of the preseason. Minnesota plays next on Thursday night. So Excuse me, Thursday night. Is that right? Yeah, Thursday night. So we'll do a post-game pod on Friday following the Thursday game against Chicago, and then they play a back-to-back Friday night before next week actual real-life Timberwolves basketball, regular season basketball gets underway. Undoubtedly, the starters are going to play in one of the Chicago or Philadelphia games. Not sure which, but we will find out on Thursday. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast out there, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. You can find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This show is part of that very same podcast network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.